My name is Leona Gracelyn, and on October 9th, 2023, I died. What I saw on the other side changed everything I thought I knew about prayer. I was never the kind of Christian who completely walked away from the faith, but if I'm honest, I had been on autopilot for years. I grew up in the church, got baptized young, and knew all the right phrases. God's timing is perfect. Trust in the Lord. Prayer changes things. But I treated prayer like something you put on a shelf when things were going fine, then pulled out when your world started shaking. I was a respiratory therapist in Durham, North Carolina. I had worked the night shift in the ICU for over a decade. I'd held the hands of strangers in their last breaths, whispered prayers over babies, comforted families when hope ran dry. And yet every time I prayed, deep down, a small voice in me wondered, does this even matter? I prayed because I was supposed to, not because I really believed it did anything. That's hard to admit, but it's the truth. I didn't pray expecting change. I prayed hoping something wouldn't get worse. I didn't feel God listening. I didn't think of prayer as power. I thought of it like a voicemail you left for heaven, not knowing if anyone ever listened to the other end. That all changed the day I died. It was a bitter cold morning. I was driving to work before sunrise, barely awake, sipping gas station coffee from a paper cup. The roads were slick from an early frost. My shift started at 6 a.m. I remember glancing at the dashboard clock, 5:14. Then everything went black. A freight truck driver had fallen asleep at the wheel. He ran a red light at full speed and slammed into the driver's side of my car. They told me later the impact crumpled the entire frame like a soda can. That it took rescue workers almost 30 minutes to extract my body from the wreck. That when the paramedics reached me, my heart had stopped. That my brain activity ceased for 7 minutes and 42 seconds. But I wasn't gone. I was more alive than I had ever been. The first thing I felt was relief. No more pain. No cold. No fear. Just a quiet awareness that I had somehow stepped out of everything heavy and into something realer than real. It wasn't like floating. It was like waking up, as if I had lived my whole life behind a thin screen, and now someone had pulled it back to show me what was actually on the other side. And I was not alone. I became aware of a presence beside me, massive but gentle, like standing next to a mountain made of music. I didn't need an introduction. I knew. Every part of me knew. It was Gabriel. I had never really thought about angels. Not like this. But he wasn't glowing with fairy dust or flapping wings like a cartoon. He was made of intelligence and truth. He radiated authority. But his face was peace. He didn't speak in words. Not at first. He simply looked at me with something like fatherly joy, and I knew I was going to be shown something important, something eternal. Then he lifted his hand, and the world around us shifted. It's hard to explain what I saw. Imagine standing in the sky, but the sky is alive. A grid of glowing light stretched in all directions. Miles, maybe more, woven like fabric made of energy and fire. And from Earth, I saw threads, billions of them, each one pulsing upward from a human heart. Some bright, some flickering, some almost invisible. Each thread was a prayer. I gasped. I wasn't watching metaphors. I was seeing the mechanics of prayer. Not theory, not poetry, but function. Gabriel finally spoke. His voice didn't hit my ears, it hit my spirit. This is the structure that responds to the cries of the earth. You call it prayer, but here it is creation in motion. I saw people praying in real time. An elderly woman in a hospital whispered a blessing for her nurse, and a wave of gold flooded the nurse's aura, giving her strength for the rest of her shift. A teenager prayed for her father's anger to stop, and I watched as his thoughts softened, ever so slightly, as if heaven had nudged his heart just enough. A man, suicidal and alone in a motel, stared at a gun on the table, until a stranger's prayer thousands of miles away pushed a moment of hesitation into his chest. He dropped the weapon. He sobbed. He lived. You think your prayers are invisible, Gabriel said. But up here, they are light, sound, structure, and motion. Gabriel extended his hand again, and the living web of light shifted. The threads of prayer glowed brighter, changing color, texture, and even sound depending on why they were prayed. Every prayer carries a frequency, Gabriel said, and frequency determines function. Then he showed me the 4 main kinds of prayers flowing through the spiritual matrix. 1, gratitude, golden, warm, expansive. These prayers filled entire areas with stability. I saw golden light roll through cities and homes like waves of honey. One woman in a cramped apartment knelt beside her bed and simply whispered, "Thank you for this day." That whisper lit up her entire building. It pushed back depression in her neighbor's apartment. It softened the heart of her angry landlord. It lingered. Gratitude anchors light, Gabriel said. It opens gates in regions where darkness seeks dominion. 2, intercession, blue-green, focused, steady. These threads were like arrows, long, pulsing beams that pierced through fog. I saw a grandmother praying for her grandson who hadn't spoken to her in years. The prayer traveled slowly but deliberately through resistance, reaching his heart like a gentle pressure. Weeks later, that man would call her out of nowhere, because of a single moment of whispered intercession. These are the prayers that realign destinies, Gabriel said. 3, desperation, red-orange, raw, shaking. These surged like volcanoes, passionate, messy, loud. Some sparked miracles. Others were tainted by bitterness or rage and dissipated into the void before they could find traction. One woman screamed through sobs, begging God to take her pain away, but her heart was also full of blame. Her prayer almost reached the grid, but unraveled. Desperation is powerful, Gabriel said, but it must not be poisoned by accusation. 4, road or empty prayer, pale gray dissolving. These were the most common and the saddest. I saw thousands of people speaking words they had memorized, but with no emotion, no belief, no sincerity, just repetition, and their prayers vanished almost instantly, like smoke and wind. The heavens are not moved by syllables, Gabriel whispered, only by the heart. Then Gabriel showed me something I never expected, prayers colliding. Sometimes 2 people were praying for opposite outcomes. A woman praying for her ex-husband's heart to open. A man praying that she would be removed from his life completely. Their prayers crashed in the spiritual realm, sparking, resisting, then neutralizing each other. But other times, group prayers merged like voices in a choir, I saw church congregations, small groups, even 3 or 4 friends who prayed in agreement, and their prayers wove together into structures of mathematical beauty. Like geometry made from music, those prayers move mountains. Unity multiplies impact, Gabriel said. Agreement accelerates alignment. Then he showed me darkness. I don't want to remember this part, but I must. I saw shadowy beings, spirits of confusion, laziness, shame. They hovered around people on earth at critical moments. Their goal? To make us stop praying. I saw a woman who had planned to pray that night, but then felt too tired. A young man who got a strong urge to pray for his friend, but was distracted by a notification on his phone. A pastor who had intended to intercede for his city, but got overwhelmed by financial stress and forgot. The greatest weapon of darkness, Gabriel said, is not attack, it's interruption. Because when prayers don't happen, light doesn't launch. When prayers are half-hearted, frequencies fizzle. And when believers stay silent, the heavens stay waiting. Then I asked the question burning inside me. Why do so many people say their prayers go unanswered? Gabriel looked at me with such gentleness it made me weep. Because they expect answers, but not relationship. He showed me how prayers are answered. Some take years because they require alignment of choices across generations. Some are answered in visions, dreams, gut feelings, but go unnoticed. Some requests would cause harm, and the no is actually divine protection. Your Father always responds, Gabriel said, but you must learn to listen differently. Then the vision began to dim. Gabriel turned to me and said something I will never forget. Go back and tell them what you saw. Not just that prayer works, but that it builds, that it heals, redirects, creates, and destroys darkness. Tell them to pray not as beggars, but as architects. And just like that, I was falling. I woke up to pain, beeping machines, blurry lights. My ribs felt like they'd been cracked open. I could barely speak. But the moment I could move, I reached for the nurse's hand and said, "Tell my pastor, I need to speak to the church." The recovery was long, but something inside me had shifted forever. I no longer saw prayer as a reaction. I saw it as foundation work. I didn't say casual words anymore. I spoke with awareness. I started small, hosting a Tuesday night prayer group at my church, teaching people how to pray with focus, agreement, and compassion. Starting an online group called The Light Thread, a space where people could submit prayers that we would lift up together, intentionally, at the same hour every week. People started to see breakthroughs, not always instant, but always strategic. One woman's husband, who hadn't stepped inside a church in 15 years, woke up one Sunday and said, "I think I need to come with you today." A boy with panic attacks stopped shaking after we began praying specific scriptures over his sleep patterns. A teenager gave her life to Christ during a prayer chain live stream because she said, "It felt like your voices were reaching inside me." And now, if you've made it this far, I need to tell you something. Prayer is not small. Prayer is not symbolic. Prayer is not background noise. Prayer shapes reality. If you could see what I saw, if you could feel the frequencies flowing from your living room, your workplace, your tears in the car, you'd never stop praying. You are not just talking to God, you are co-creating with Him. So pray boldly. Pray specifically. Pray with others. Pray until the thread of your words carves light into darkness. Because when you open your mouth with faith, the fabric of the universe listens. If this story touched you, don't scroll away. Share it. Comment. Subscribe. Someone you know might be about to give up on prayer, and your voice could be the one that brings them back. I'm Leona Gracelyn. I died, and Jesus showed me the truth about prayer. And now, I pray like everything depends on it, because it does.